In the bustling heart of New York City, where skyscrapers pierced the winter sky like frozen daggers and the streets hummed with the relentless march of ambition, a single question shattered the silence of a man's carefully constructed world. "Can I share this table with you?" The words came from a young girl, no more than 18, her voice trembling like a leaf in the December wind. She stood there in the dimly lit corner of an upscale cafe, her threadbare coat dusted with snow, her eyes wide with a mix of desperation and fragile hope. The millionaire, Alexander Voss, froze mid-sip of his espresso, his fork hovering over a half-eaten slice of tiramisu. In that instant, time stopped, not just for him, but for everyone who might witness such a moment. What happens when worlds collide? When the invisible becomes seen? Stick around, because this story will pull at your heartstrings and remind you why kindness can change everything. If it moves you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales that inspire the soul. Let's dive in. Alexander Voss was the epitome of success, a self-made tech mogul whose fortune was built on algorithms that predicted consumer behavior with eerie accuracy. At 45, he lived in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, drove a fleet of luxury cars, and dined alone most nights, his only companions the ghosts of deals won and relationships lost. That evening, as snowflakes danced outside the cafe's floor-to-ceiling windows, he had chosen this quiet spot to escape the holiday chaos. Christmas lights twinkled mockingly from the streets below, a reminder of the family gatherings he avoided. His ex-wife had taken their daughter years ago in a bitter divorce, and since then, solitude had become his armor. The girl, her name was Lily, hadn't always been homeless. Just 6 months ago, she was a high school senior in a small Ohio town, dreaming of college scholarships and a future in art. Her sketches filled notebooks with vibrant worlds of color, a stark contrast to the gray reality that had swallowed her. Her mother, a single parent battling addiction, had overdosed one fateful night, leaving Lily with nothing but an eviction notice and a backpack of belongings. Foster care had rejected her at 18, deeming her an adult, and so she hitchhiked to the city, chasing whispers of opportunity. But the streets were unforgiving, nights in shelters turned to alleys when beds filled up, meals scavenged from dumpsters, and the constant ache of hunger gnawing at her resolve. That day, the cold had driven her inside the cafe, not for food she couldn't afford, but for a moment's warmth. Spotting Alexander alone at a table for two, she mustered her courage. "Can I share this table with you?" she asked again, softer this time, as if expecting rejection. Alexander's freeze wasn't just surprise, it was a crack in his facade. Her face, heart-shaped, with freckles like scattered stars, reminded him of his daughter, Emily, who would be about Lily's age now. He hadn't seen Emily in a decade, not since the custody battle where his workaholic lifestyle was deemed unfit. The guilt had festered, buried under board meetings and billion-dollar acquisitions. He stammered, setting down his cup with a clink that echoed too loudly. The cafe patrons glanced over, some with pity, others with annoyance. A waiter hovered nearby, ready to escort the intruder out. But Alexander waved him off. "Sure," he said finally, his voice gruff. "Sit down. You look like you could use a hot drink." Lily hesitated, her boots leaving wet prints on the polished floor as she slid into the chair opposite him. Up close, Alexander noticed the dirt under her nails, the way her hands shook as she clutched her backpack like a lifeline. "Thank you," she whispered, her breath fogging the air slightly. The waiter returned with menus, eyeing her suspiciously, but Alexander ordered cocoa for her and a refill for himself. As the steam rose from her mug, the barriers began to crumble. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Lily," she replied, wrapping her fingers around the warmth. "And yours?" "Alex." He omitted the full name, not wanting the weight of his identity to overshadow the moment. They talked tentatively at first, about the snow, the city's lights. But as the cocoa loosened her guard, Lily's story spilled out. She spoke of her mother's struggles, the funeral she couldn't afford, the dreams deferred. "I used to draw," she said, pulling a crumpled sketchbook from her bag. The pages were filled with intricate drawings, a mother and daughter laughing under a tree, cityscapes alive with hidden faces. Alexander flipped through them, his throat tightening. "These are incredible," he murmured. "You have real talent." The conversation deepened as the evening wore on. Alexander shared fragments of his own past, not the glossy magazine version, but the raw truth. Born to immigrant parents in a rundown Brooklyn apartment, he had clawed his way up from poverty, coding in public libraries while his family scraped by. "I know what it's like to be hungry," he admitted, surprising himself. "But I forgot. Success, it insulates you." Lily listened, her eyes reflecting empathy he hadn't earned. Challenges mounted in his mind. Should he help her? Was this a scam? The cynic in him whispered warnings, but her vulnerability pierced through. As the cafe emptied, Alexander faced his first real test. Lily excused herself to the restroom, leaving her sketchbook behind. Flipping to a blank page, he scribbled his number. When she returned, he said, "Look, I can't just leave you out there. Let me get you a room for the night." She protested, pride flickering in her eyes, but the exhaustion won out. He booked a hotel nearby, prepaid for a week, and walked her there through the swirling snow. "Why are you doing this?" she asked at the door. "Because I see myself in you," he replied honestly. "And maybe, my daughter." That night, alone in his penthouse, Alexander couldn't sleep. Memories flooded back, Emily's laughter, the divorce papers, the empty Christmases. He dug out old photos, tears blurring the edges. The next day, he called Lily, offering more than shelter, a job at his company's art department, where she could intern while pursuing classes. But trust didn't come easy. Lily's challenges were layered: trauma from loss, the stigma of homelessness, the fear of dependency. She accepted the job warily, starting as a graphic assistant, her talent shining through in logo designs that captured the human element his tech firm lacked. Weeks turned to months. Alexander mentored her, but the emotional depth grew mutual. Lily challenged him to reconnect with Emily, helping him draft a letter that poured out years of regret. "You can't buy back time," she told him one afternoon in the office, as they collaborated on a project. "But you can start now." The resolution came slowly, painfully. Emily responded to the letter, cautious but open. Their first meeting was awkward, tears mixing with tentative hugs, Lily there as a quiet supporter. Meanwhile, Lily faced her own hurdles: enrolling in community college, therapy for grief, rebuilding self-worth. A setback hit when old doubts resurfaced. She nearly quit, feeling like a charity case. "I'm not your redemption story," she confronted Alexander during a heated argument. "You're right," he conceded. "But you're family now. And family fights through." They resolved it over coffee, echoing their first meeting. Alexander funded a scholarship in her mother's name, turning pain into purpose. Lily's art flourished, her pieces exhibited in galleries, symbolizing resilience. Years later, as Alexander walked Lily down the aisle at her wedding, her to a kind artist she met in class, he reflected on that frozen moment. The girl who asked to share a table had shared her life, thawing his heart. Emily was back in his world, a blended family formed from broken pieces. Lily's inspiring message lingered: one act of kindness can rewrite destinies. In a world of division, they proved connection heals. And there you have it, folks, an emotional journey from a simple question to lifelong bonds. If this story touched you, smash that like button, subscribe for more heartwarming tales, and turn on notifications so you never miss one. What's your takeaway? Share in the comments below. Let's spread some positivity.